All right, I'm in.
All right. Good evening, everybody, and welcome to Smack Talk Live. I am Coach along with Lone Wolf, and today we are going to be talking Major League Baseball as the season is starting. And I'll admit it, a month ago, I did not think this day was going to happen. Um, I
Neither did I.
didn't care what people said, what was coming on in the news. To me, baseball was dead in the water. Um, but they are pulling it off. So we are going to talk about the top teams, who we think is going to make playoffs and has a chance to win the World Series, and maybe touch on some other stuff. It's really kind of a quiet week since our last show, even
Right.
um, with baseball starting and the NBA starting back up. Um, Not a ton um, that really happened, to be honest.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I
So,
think there's a lot of sports related stories that you and I had talked about that are social issue type stories, that are still kind of going on outside of the actual sports themselves coming back in. So,
right, and we said last week we are not talking about those
right.
anymore because I'm done. I'm done. And
Yeah. We're at a point
I'm
now
not
where,
even gonna
yeah,
bring
we've just talked
I'm not
about too
even gonna
much.
bring
Yeah.
up the latest thing the NFL has done to turn away people.
Right.
Um, but if you've read anything on ESPN, you probably can figure it out. They
Or
are
almost any
just,
other sports site. Yeah.
I mean, holy moly, I think the NFL is just like sabotaging themselves right now, to be honest. But again, not talking about that. Let's talk about baseball. Now, I'm going to admit, baseball's not one of my favorite and most followed sports. So, Wilmoth, I'm going to let you take the lead on this
Okay.
because I know you're more into this than I am.
Yeah, well, I guess what I would say is, I was in the same boat as you, coach. Early on, I did not think baseball was going to come back. I was I was very skeptical about how it was going to work. And when they finally just said, the commissioner just said, this is what we're going to do, I guess the players basically had to acquiesce, and here they are now. So I guess I should be totally surprised, but I am a little bit surprised that it maybe went as easily as it had. And here we are now with baseball being played as we speak. So I'm actually happy though, because we had talked for so long about how this just wasn't happening, and now there's some normalcy. You see a sport back out there. People can enjoy this on television. The one thing I didn't see was, and I didn't get a chance to, is there any fan attendance? I didn't see that. I don't know. I didn't watch any of the games. I was working today, so I don't know. Are they
Um, I didn't see it. I know I read one article that one of the stations that's airing games is actually CGIing fans in the stands for like the at
okay?
home viewers, so it looks like there's fans there, which is kind of
It's kind of
creepy.
yeah, it's kind of
I
cheesy. I
mean,
don't know, kind of weird. Yeah,
so I don't think there are right now.
yeah. Okay. And I didn't think so, but I just didn't know for sure if, somebody had said that they were going to do it. But either way, you can turn on the television and you get a live baseball, you get a live baseball game.
That matters. That
That matters,
matters. That
exactly. And this
matters.
is a shortened season, which we talked about before, which I think is going to bring a lot of interest into baseball, because who gets injured and how a team is playing from the very beginning is going to make a huge impact on what happens with the playoffs.
Exactly. And that's the thing. And I think that's what could make this intriguing for a lot of people.
Right.
In the, bring in some, at least bring in some casual fans, is that every game matters now. It is not just okay, we have 162 games. If we don't watch the first 80, it's not really going to matter. These all matter. Every single one of these games matters. And, you know, if they decide, whoa, we got some on the ESPN, we got a little bit of advertising going on. Um, if they don't start out well,
Mm-hmm.
and you get in, 4, 5, 6 games back, you're in trouble.
Right.
Um,
Right. I mean, you can
it's
surge back into the mix. Don't get me wrong, but the ability to be able to do that, or to have a quote unquote mid-season slump and to come back, really is going to be very, very difficult. I mean, you just won't be able to have that same thing, with having 100 plus less games. Um, I mean, to me, it is, you can, it's going to be different. I'm trying to just formulate the right thought. It's going to be a little different because they are expanding the playoffs for this particular season.
Yep.
So if you do have a little bit of a slump in terms of not being quite as good, you have a better chance of making the playoffs because they are expanding it to a 16 team field. So,
Yep.
that in and of itself may make it a little easier, but nevertheless, to have that real chance and that real shot at being in the postseason and having a chance to win the whole thing, yeah, your margin for error is going to be a lot less with this shortened season. And, one thing I wanted to mention too is, what does this mean for baseball going forward? We talked about it briefly. If there was a season, we knew it would have to be shorter. Does this mean that baseball is going to change, in the future? They've been really reluctant to change in a lot of issues. They're steeped in tradition as a sport. What is it going to look like in potentially next year in a non-coronavirus situation?
Right. And that's what I think the biggest thing is. I don't think you'll see a change in the length of the season. I don't think owners or players want less games, because the owners know they make money, and the players know if they have less games, they make less money. So I don't think you'll see that. It will be interesting to see how this 1 year playoff format pans out, because if
Mm-hmm.
this works well and their ratings go through the roof for the playoffs,
Right.
this could lead to major playoff change. And that's like almost one of the biggest traditional things of baseball, is that they don't want to have all these teams in the playoffs.
Right.
Well, get your heads out of your rear ends. The
Mm-hmm.
people want to go to playoff games. They don't care about going to a game in mid-June. They want to go to a game in October.
Right.
You know, so I'm looking at this. So 16 teams for this year. The top first six are the division winners and the second place teams. So as long as you
Yep.
finish in the top two in your division, you make the playoffs. And then the last two teams are the next two with the best record in
Right.
each league. So you have a lot of opportunity now to
Yeah.
make the playoffs,
Right.
which I think makes baseball more intriguing, because I remember when the Brewers stunk. I mean,
Yeah.
we grew up in the 90s after Yount and Molitor and those guys were gone. The
Right.
Brewers just stunk.
They were bad. Yeah, they were awful.
But they would go on these, like, win like 15 to 20 here and there, and you're like, hey, this is
Yeah.
great. Well, now you're going to get a team that could be around 500, and
Right.
if they get hot, they could make the World Series, and that's intriguing.
It is
That brings
exactly.
excitement. And
Yes.
you know, I think these executives, they all think everybody wants to see, the Yankees versus, right now, I don't know, the Dodgers.
Right.
No, we don't. We don't
Yeah.
care. Yeah, the big markets want to see that.
Right.
Guess what? Most of us don't.
Yeah.
Most of
Yeah.
us don't want to see
It's
Yankees
really true. I
Dodgers.
mean, baseball is one of those sports, unlike some of the other sports, where they have this heralded tradition, and not that other sports don't have that, but they cling to it so much, where they hark back
Right.
to the days when Babe Ruth was still playing baseball. Well, it's been a few years since then, so you got to change and adapt to the times. One of the reasons the NFL
Right.
is so successful is they they pander a little bit more to what the average fan wants. And I think
Right.
that you're absolutely right with the playoff thing for baseball. Man, I mean, if your team has a shot, then you're interested in what's going on. If your team, is mid-season and they're 20-60, you're not caring about it anymore because then your team is
Right.
done. You're 80 games in and your team is already done. You don't care about it anymore. But if you think about it now, I mean, with this shortened season, obviously, I think you make a good point about the length. But for this shortened season, if your team is 20-20, you know, you're looking at
You're
it,
still
and
in it.
unless everybody else is crazy, yeah, you're still in this thing. You got a shot here. 20 games
Right.
to go, you're 500. You could
You
get
know,
that
and
eighth spot.
that, and we'll talk about our thoughts on playoff teams and who has a
Right.
shot here a little bit later. But you look at these teams that are younger that are going to be around 500 that in the last season or two have gone on those hot streaks. And
Right.
that would be intriguing to see one of those young teams that maybe 3-4 years away from being like a top contending team get into the playoffs and win the World Series.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry, that's how you're going to generate fan interest again. This, I, we a month ago we're like, this is the death of baseball. Baseball's dead.
Right. Yeah, we thought so. Yeah, we really
But
did.
here's the thing: if, and this is a big if because baseball always mucks it up and puts their head up their rear end too many times. If they really seriously look at this and this playoff format is successful, you would have to be stupid not to keep some type of this format around permanently.
Right.
If
Yeah, you would. I agree.
you
Yep.
if you do that, you're gonna generate interest. The fans are gonna come back because now they don't have to sit and wait a decade for their team to rebuild. A
Right.
team that's average has a shot. Right now, teams that are average don't have a shot.
I mean, I'll give baseball only a minor amount of credit in the fact that, you know, they used to only have what, four teams get into the postseason.
Right.
It has come a little bit since then, but how long has it taken, and how much tooth pulling has it taken to get to this point? Um,
Well, it
it,
it's
it, it
taken a
just
it's taken a world pandemic. I mean,
right, right.
I mean,
That's what it
this,
takes for baseball to change their playoff format. People,
this wasn't a bunch of people sitting around and be like, hey, let's give this a shot. This is a
right,
good
right,
idea. If this pandemic doesn't happen, there's no changes happening,
yeah,
and baseball goes about its business. So
right.
we were talking a
So
month
maybe
ago
this
that
is a shot in the arm that they need.
right, we were talking a month ago that
Yeah,
this could be the end of baseball, but
right.
now if they do it right and
Yeah,
actually look at it, this
it could be.
could be a revitalization of baseball.
Right, right.
Will it happen? I don't know. Uh,
Yeah, I don't. I'm still
again,
skeptical when it comes to
my,
that. I
and,
still am.
and and the reason I'm skeptical is because I don't have any faith in the commissioner or that office
Hmm.
to make right decisions. I think the owners and the players would be for it
Sure.
because it's more money for them, for
Yeah.
both sides.
Right.
So, um,
I think the
You know,
smart thing to do would be to keep that format. I
I
mean,
do.
like we just
I,
talked about,
I mean,
monetarily generate fan interest.
I mean, when you look at the plan, it's not like you're adding teams, but I don't think you'd add a ton of time. You may have to condense the season, maybe
Sure.
few less off days in a full season, or maybe go down to like 156 games, which isn't
Sure.
a
So, yeah, so
big
you cut out
deal,
a few games just to add another playoff series, or two in there
right?
so you can
Because like
accommodate that.
right
Yeah.
now, you play the first round is best three of four,
Yep.
and then the division series are the best of five. Then the Champion Series and World Series are best of seven.
Right.
I mean, you're not going to add a ton of time, condense the
Right.
season. Hey, how about this? And I bet fans would love this because I remember growing up, this was always the rage. Like for at least for a lot of people that I knew that liked baseball, went to them all the time, going to double headers.
Right.
They
Yeah.
don't play double headers that much anymore.
No. No, not
It's
really.
only it's
Yeah.
only if they have a cancellation and stuff. But if you play double headers, families make days of it.
Sure.
Like a
Yeah.
full day at your stadium. Think about that. You're buying
Mhm.
two tickets, you're eating at least two meals there.
Right.
And with all the other fan experiences at the stadiums now, you're not going to make money off of a double header.
Well, and I think a lot of that probably has to do with injury concerns. I'm sure that's a lot of the things
Wham,
that
wham,
play into it.
wham, Lone Wolf.
Yeah.
They get paid millions and millions of dollars. They can play two games in a day.
Yeah,
I,
yeah.
I, I mean, seriously, they swing the bat 4 or 5 times a game. Some guys
Right,
don't even touch a ball when they're in the outfield an entire game. They stand there and pick
right.
their butts. So
Yeah.
don't get no. I'm not going to buy the whole injury thing. Play
No,
the
no, and I
games.
agree. I agree. Look, I mean, and you'll go through a lot of pitching. That'd be the only thing that you'd be looking at. But
Ah,
if you play it right in terms of how you would do that, you could easily have a doubleheader, and then you give them an extra day or two off before they have to play
right.
their next series or
Hmm.
whatever it is. And you could do that. Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think there's some innovation. There's some possibility for innovation for baseball. So I'm hoping, for baseball's sake, that this flips the script for them and maybe actually turns out to be a good thing as opposed to what it was, which was almost a disaster into nothingness. Before, and you had some people really questioning, ourselves included, whether they'd even come back. So,
Right. So that's going to be it. That will be interesting. That's a long term thing. But turning our attention to the teams themselves.
yes,
Okay. Um, again, I'm going a lot off of what I know from early on in spring training.
right,
The
yep,
one thing is, it'll be interesting because as of right now, the Toronto Blue Jays still do not have a place to play home
no,
games.
no, they don't.
So that's still an issue that needs to get worked out. Um, but it looked like they have a couple of possibilities, but uh, we'll see what happens there. Where do you want to start, Lone Wolf?
So we're talking about the best teams, or who's going to make the playoffs, or how do you want to approach this?
Well, let's just go by each division,
Okay,
and we'll talk about each division, um,
okay, yeah, we can
and
do
then
that.
we'll go over who we think can make the playoffs and win the World Series.
All right. So, well, let's just start in the American League, and we can work from there. That's fine with me. Um, so we'll go East, Central, and then West. Um, that should be the easiest, I think, and we'll do the same thing on the National League side.
All right, so sounds good. So we got the Baltimore Orioles.
Yes.
I'm just pulling up their stuff here. They're let's see. Not a lot
They're
of
really not.
not a lot of good stuff here for the
No,
Orioles. Sorry.
no, no. I don't think they're going to be very good this year. I think they're going to be a bottom feeder in the AL East for this year. And we talked about teams catching fire, but I don't think they have the firepower to catch fire. So I don't think that's going to happen.
Yeah, and
Um,
I mean, unfortunately, they've been pretty down in the last couple of years.
right,
Um, they had a couple of years where they were, hanging around the middle of the pack when they had Machado, and then they got rid of
right.
him. And since then, it's been
Well,
not
and
not a good.
they're without Mancini, and he had a really good year last year. They just don't have, like I said, they don't have the firepower to be able to do it. And they haven't really made any moves to put them in a category where they'd be contending for anything. I don't think so. To me, they're the bottom feeder in this division.
Right. So moving on to the Toronto Blue Jays, um, I think this could be one of those interesting teams because
Hmm.
you know they were decent last year. They got a lot of nice young talent. I'm just looking at like their tune-up games here, and they won 7 in a row.
Yeah,
So and that doesn't mean much because you
right.
sit guys, you don't play everybody. But as an indicator, you have depth.
Yeah, I think they're kind of one of those teams that are on the outside looking in. Like they're not quite there. Um, but nevertheless, I mean, it's a possibility. But I still think in the end game they'll be on the outside looking in. They're not going to be bad, but they'll hover. But I don't think they're gonna make the postseason. That's my feeling about them.
All right. Moving on. Who's the next one here, Lone Wolf?
Well, let's go with the Rays, and then we'll leave the Sox and the Yankees for later. So the Rays.
Okay, the Tampa Bay Rays. I'm going out looking at the power rankings. They have them ranked third in the
Mm-hmm.
league at a 21 odds to make the World Series. Um, you, they're always been an interesting team. Kind of,
Right.
right on the cusp, but can't
Right.
get over the hump.
Right. And I think sometimes that this team gets forgotten because the storylines in the AL East are always the Yankees and the Red Sox, the Yankees and the Red Sox, the Yankees and the Red Sox. But people forget about how good, like you said, they've been right there. They just can't get over the hump. But they forget about how good the Rays actually are. I think this is one of those teams that, look out because people are going to be talking about the Yankees. They're going to be talking about the Red Sox, who I personally don't think are as good as the Rays. But this is a team that could potentially make a run in this format. Um, so I mean, I don't know. We'll get to whether who wins the World Series or who makes the World Series, but they're a team that's sneaky good and maybe not sneaky. I don't know. They just don't get the same headlines, but they deserve more credit. They're a good team, and they're a deep team.
Right. So let's go to Boston first, because I think we know where the Yankees are kind of at.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
according to the latest power rankings, the Red Sox are ranked 20th.
Oh,
Um,
I saw 16th on a different site, so I guess it depends on how you're
yeah,
looking
I'm
at
on
it. But
ESPN.
yeah,
This might be a couple days old, but still
sure.
splitting
Either way,
hairs, 16 to 20. I mean,
yeah, yeah, yep,
you hear Boston, you expect them to be up towards the top.
right.
I'm not sure though, to be honest. You have a team, I think, that is still kind of clinging to the World Series victory,
Right,
which is now 5 years ago.
right. It's been a few. Yeah,
Something like that. It's been a little bit. Um, you know, and I don't think that they have enough firepower to overtake either the Rays or the Yankees. but
Right.
they could be one of those teams to battle for that seventh or eighth spot in the playoffs. That is
Yeah.
the nice thing about this year is that again, last year they were 84 and 78. Well, if you can be
Right.
roughly around 500 in that area, you have a shot to make the postseason. And then if
Yeah.
they get to the postseason, you don't know. They do have some nice um, players on their roster, um,
They
but
do have some decent pitching,
yeah,
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think they're one of those teams that could potentially make a run at it. I mean, I'd give them a better chance than say Toronto. If you're betting, on a team, I'd bet on them above Toronto. But I don't think they've done what the Yankees or the Rays. They're not in that league. They're kind of just on the cusp of making the postseason. So would they be one that would make the postseason? It's possible, but yeah, they just seem like they've faded from what they were, and they really haven't done enough to maintain that high level. So they're kind of on the outside, right on the edge, I think.
right. So that leads us to the Yankees.
Yep.
Um, to no surprise, they are the favorites to win that division.
Right.
They're ranked second in the power rankings behind the Dodgers. Um, I mean, they won
They're
103
first
games.
on the rankings I'm looking at,
Yeah,
but again, either way, they're
again,
one of the top teams in baseball. Yeah.
so they're up there. Um, they won 103 games last year.
Right.
I would assume they're going to win 45 plus games in the regular season unless something weird happens.
Right.
They could have, they had a lot of injuries last year. And like you said, you get a couple injuries this year,
Yeah, it's going to
that
make all
could
the difference.
that could
Yep.
be a big impact. I know
If they're major, I will say this:
right,
if
right,
they're minor injuries and you get guys who are out, say, game 20 to 40 kind of thing, and you have a little bit of a slump, but then you surge on the third, the back third of the season through the playoffs, then you could be okay. But if you get guys who are injured and they're out for the season, like if Giancarlo Stanton gets injured and or something, and he's out for the rest of the season, he blasts a homer today, but then he's gone for the rest of the season or
right,
something. Yeah, that's going to be harmful. Minor injuries you can overcome, but I think we're more talking about the major injuries for this
right,
type of thing.
exactly.
Yeah.
So, I you know unless something weird happens, the Yankees are going to be one of the top teams, um,
Right.
at least in the American League, if not the league. Like I said,
In general, yeah, I
we'll
agree.
we'll
Yep. Yep.
we'll get to that stuff a little bit later. Moving to the American Central.
League Central. Yep.
Start with the Cleveland Indians.
Right.
Last year, 93-69. Um, yeah, again in the ESPN rankings, I'm looking at their ninth, um, and I think they're going to be one of the best teams in that division.
Right.
I don't really see a team in that division winning at all. I
Right.
just
I agree.
it's one of those divisions. It's a young division. They have a lot of young players um, throughout that entire division that could develop and be good down the road. I just don't think they have what it takes to be competitive this year. Um, but I think what's going to benefit that teams in that division is that if you finish in the top two, you automatically make the playoffs.
Yeah. And I mean,
So
if I scan this division right now, Royals, Twins, Sox, Indians, Tigers, the Indians to me would be in terms of if they're
right,
second in their division, because I think they probably will be, then they'd be in. To me, this one kind of plays out a little easier than some of the other ones. It's not as good of a division as some others, and I think the Indians are one of those teams that could certainly be in and probably will be in the playoffs. So,
Right, and and the only other team there in that division would be the Twins.
right,
I mean, they
right,
won. The Twins did win 101 games last year, but the thing with the Twins, and this is not bashing the Twins. I think
right.
they are a quality team. I think them and Cleveland will be the two teams out of that division that make the postseason
Yeah,
because the Tigers and the Royals are not very good. So let's
no,
just get
they're
them out of the
not.
way right now. And
Right,
then the
they're just
White
bad.
Sox
Sorry,
are
guys.
are
Sorry,
are,
Kansas
are
City. Sorry, Detroit. They're bad.
yeah, they're bad. And the White Sox, they're okay, but they would have to play above what their potential is to get to that 500 mark, and I don't know if they can do
Right.
that.
No.
The issue I have with both Cleveland and Minnesota, I'm just gonna say this: they're
Yeah.
quality clubs. I mean, Minnesota won the division with 101 games last year,
Right.
but you also have to take in consideration the division you're in. You
Yeah.
play a majority of your games versus your division. Well, when you play three teams that are towards the bottom of the entire major league
Right.
spectrum, you're gonna win a lot of games. That
Yeah.
doesn't mean you're like an elite team, but will they make the playoffs? Yes. The Twins and the Indians, unless something weird happens, will be
Right.
the
They'll
two
make it.
teams coming out of the
Yeah.
Central Division for the American League.
And
And
and that's like you said, it's not a knock on those teams to make it, but it's definitely something you have to rate when you say, will this team make it farther than the first round in the playoffs? Because, it's no different to me than, say, right now, the NFC East in football. It's not a good
right,
division. So, yeah,
right.
that team may end up. What if that team wins 10 or 11 games? Well, they did, but they won 6 games against division opponents that were horrible. I mean, this is kind of the same thing where it's not as good of a division, so you're out there sweeping teams that are bad. You know.
Exactly, and that's the thing. It's you're gonna make the playoffs, but the ability to get out of the first round, I have concerns with because of who you play. That's that's the concern, and I don't
Yeah.
think you're gonna really change my mind on that until you do it. That's just
Right. Yeah, until you go out there and you actually do it, right? So I don't see that, but
so.
okay, so then we'll move on to the AL West.
So we can say this: the Mariners aren't doing anything.
Nope, they are
They
bad.
they're bad. They just can't seem to make the right moves and bring in players to be competitive.
Yeah. And it's been that way for a while too.
Yeah, ever since they got let um, Junior go, they haven't really been a competitive club. Um,
Right.
and unfortunately, there's just some
Some
organizations
teams,
that
yeah.
happens to. You get rid of a guy because of financial reasons, and your club just never recovers. So,
Right.
um, you know, sorry, Seattle, you're just not very good.
Yeah.
Texas Rangers kind of in the same boat. There could be in that mix, but I,
Yeah, it to me they're one of those outside looking in teams that has a real outside shot at it. They're kind of like the Blue Jays where, you know, could they? Yes, they could. Will they? Probably not, based on their roster. I mean, they've got some interesting pieces, but I just don't see that they have enough to be able to overcome the hump to get into the postseason. Not with how crazy I think that this season's going to be, and with teams driving for the postseason, and for the division that they're in. I just
yeah,
don't see it. So
this is, I would say, going to be one of the funnest divisions to watch.
I think
because
so. Yeah.
I think Oakland and Houston are very well matched teams.
Right.
They've been battling back and forth the last couple of years, and Houston's had the upside of that.
Right.
And then you know when you look at the Angels, they were under 500 last year, but they're one of those teams too. If you can get hot or start out really well, don't put it past them to be able to make a little bit of noise, in the first round of the playoffs. When you look at the American League overall,
Mm-hmm.
I, it's almost cut and dry who's going to make the playoffs here, Lone Wolf.
I think
Obviously,
so. Yeah.
probably the Yankee and Tampa Bay are probably going to be 1-2 in the East.
Right.
Cleveland, Minnesota in the
Yep.
Central,
Yep.
and probably Houston and Oakland in the West.
Right.
Right?
Right. Yeah, I agree with you 100%. Yep.
Okay. Seattle doesn't have a shot at the playoffs.
Right.
Texas probably, like you said, they're an outlier. Could. And that leaves you with Los Angeles, which is one of those maybe teams. You go to the
Yep.
Central. No way the Tigers are making it. I don't see the Royals or the White Sox making it.
No. No.
Okay, so we're still only at Los Angeles, the Angels.
Right.
You go to the East, Boston probably, and then you have the Blue Jays, one of those outliers, and then you got the Orioles. So
Right.
I mean, really, there
I
could
mean,
be a
it looks to
surprise,
me
but
like it's Sox Angels. There's not a lot of surprises unless possibly a team like the Blue Jays,
right,
maybe, or the Rangers or something like we talked about, but I don't see a lot of surprises here either. I really don't. And of course, again, barring major injury, we talked about that a few times, but that seems to me to be the script that may play out. Now, obviously, it's sports. Who knows? Anything can happen. But generally speaking, that's what we're seeing here. And I
exactly.
agree.
So,
Yeah. Yeah.
and we'll talk about our thoughts on how the playoffs will work out here once we get done previewing the American League, or I'm sorry, National League.
Moving on to the National League.
National League.
Yep. Right. Yep.
So looking at the East,
Yep. The NL East. Yeah.
it's one of the NL East is one of those division. It's always been, besides the domination of the Braves in the '90s,
Right.
it's been kind of an up and down and up for grabs division. You've never really had a team other than that period with the Braves to dominate that division.
Absolutely. Yep.
Obviously you have the Nationals there, who
Right.
are defending World Series champions.
Right.
The Braves won 97 games last year.
Yep.
I would expect them to be towards the top of that division. They got a nice young team. And I'm going to do this really quick. And they're staying the Braves. Going to give them some extra points for that. Real quick. I'm throwing that out there. But then you got the Nationals, 93 wins from last year. Again, World Series champs. The Mets were above 500 last year. I think
this division, to me, Coach, is quite possibly the most competitive division in all of baseball. I really think that, because the Nationals, like you said, they had 93 wins, but you had a better team in your division last year. That other team won the World Series. This division is loaded to me, because every team, I look at it, and we'll talk about each team, but there's a lot of chances here for these teams to make the postseason.
Well, and the only team that you can just scratch off the list that doesn't have a chance is Miami.
Yes, yeah, I agree.
I mean, really, if the Marlins would make the playoffs, and yes, they have multiple World Series championships for their organization, but
they're not that good this year. They're really not. Yeah. But I mean, you look at it, there's 4 out of 5 teams here that have a chance of making the postseason. And I think all of them have a legitimate chance of making the postseason.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, you look at besides Miami, every team
Right.
was 500 or above last
Yep.
year.
Yep.
Um, you could be looking at both wild cards. You could have 4 teams out of the NL East in the playoffs.
You could, and deservedly so. I mean, you look
Right.
at the Braves. Freeman comes back after COVID. This team is 97 games last year. They're good. And then I think a lot of intriguing storylines because the Nationals, returning as the champs, how do they deal with that in this shortened season and without Anthony Rendon after last year? So there's a lot of intriguing storylines here in this division.
Right. It's gonna be. I think that's gonna be fun. Like I said, that I think the AL West is gonna be fun to watch because of Oakland and Houston.
Right.
But the NL East is going to the battle there. I mean, you could. That's a division where every game counts. Every game
Yeah,
counts in that
definitely.
division. If you
Whenever
want
you're
to win,
playing
if you
against a
want to win
division
the
opponent,
division,
yeah.
if you are just out to make the playoffs, you, I mean, really, if you look at any of those 4 teams, as long as they play to their potential, they'll be a playoff team. Because
Right.
there are other teams here in the NL that you look at them, you're like, no way. They they
Yeah, they're
they
horrible.
don't
Yeah, yep.
compare to the teams in that division.
Right.
So, um, and like we'll break it down a little bit more here, as we get through the next 2 divisions and into to what we think will happen in the playoffs.
Right, right.
But let's move on to the NL Central on our thoughts there.
This is
Um,
our home division, with the Brewers.
yep, the power rankings have the Reds, who are below 500 last year, winning the division, the top ranked team in the division, followed by the Cardinals, Cubs, Brewers, and the Pirates. They're bad. They're again just like Miami, scratch them off. This
The Pirates are very bad.
this I think is a intriguing division because I think it's gonna be very competitive
Yeah.
in the division. Not
Right.
saying that they're like all these teams can compete with the entire league, but
Right.
I think it's going to be like a smash mouth. You could see like a 35 and 25 division winner out of this crew, this group.
Yeah. Yeah.
I that's the kind of division I think it is. I
Not
think a
only can
lot of
he
these
coach,
teams
but
are.
he can do math quickly.
Yeah, I know. It's surprising because academics was not one of my strong points in school. I am a FIAD teacher too, so
But you're right.
um,
I think that is a definite possibility. Yeah.
yeah, because I think a lot of these teams are pretty balanced and they're very comparable. They say that the Reds have the best pitching staff in the NL. I there it's good, but I wouldn't say the best. Um,
Right.
but you look at a team, and we've talked about this, and we're not. I'm not trying to be a homer here, but you look at
Right.
like a team like the Brewers.
Yep.
Besides Ryan Braun, you
Yeah.
have a very young team there,
Right.
and if they just play because they love playing the game and catch fire, that's what I'm talking about with the playoffs. They could
Mm-hmm.
be like that one of those wild card teams that sneaks in there, and these young guys just are having a fun,
I
catch
mean,
fire,
right. Right.
and then you have
Keston
Yelich.
Hiura had a great year last year. He's entering his second year. If he's one of those guys that catches fire, along with some of the veterans that are already there, that yeah, they could have they have a really good chance of winning the division.
And you know
Now the
what?
power rankings I'm looking at, they have the Cardinals, the Brewers, and then the Reds in that
Yeah,
order.
and
So it just
I would be more apt to go with yours on this division.
right,
I
right,
think the Reds have a good pitching staff. I don't think they're great.
Right.
And people can say, "Oh, how can you say that?" I just did. That's
Yeah, I
my
just did.
opinion.
Yep, too bad.
I get,
Yeah.
and that's what a lot of people. Well, how can you say it? That's my opinion. That's
Yeah.
from what I look at and what I value. They're they're good, not great. Uh,
Yeah.
that's just the way I look at it. So yeah, I mean, and the one thing I think, and he doesn't get enough credit, and he didn't get a lot of credit when he played the game. Craig
Yeah.
Counsell gets like bashed in the just because he's Craig Counsell. Like even when
Right.
he played, like he had that weird batting stance stuff, and we all.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
even
Yeah,
I
he
took
did. Yeah.
digs at him. I mean, I'm not gonna sit here and say I never did. Yeah, we all made fun. Like, what is he doing? But he is a good manager. He puts his players in a position to be successful. He is not going to make a decision that loses them games.
Right.
You know, it's so I think they have an edge there, and so
Yeah.
again,
I
I
think
think
you have
they'll
to
be
look at it too, coach, for baseball. There's some smaller market teams that have to go about things a different way, and some have, like, San Francisco went out there and was able to put something together and win a World Series and be successful. Other teams in smaller markets have been able to do that and be successful. Lately, Milwaukee has been able to do that and be successful because teams just don't have the money that the Dodgers or the Yankees or whoever in a big market has. So they have to find other ways to do it. And I think the Brewers have been able to do that successfully, you know. And that's
right,
something that is intriguing about baseball, in the fact that you do have those teams that can do that, and have that capability. And that, I think, that draws me to the Brewers. I like the way that they have put themselves together and where they are. Um, and again, we don't want to necessarily completely sound like homers, but yeah, we're Brewers fans, so we're going to talk them up a little bit. But they actually legitimately do have a chance to win this division.
right. And again, I think it all comes down to is can their young pitchers, you know, perform well. If they
Right.
do, they're going to be right there.
Yeah.
If they don't, it's going to be a long 60 games for them.
Yeah. And
So
honestly, I
moving
think
on
you
to
see. I was just gonna say. I think. Well, we'll get into that a little bit. Let's move on to the last division. Yeah.
yeah, the NL West, probably I'd say one of the worst divisions, in baseball besides the American League Central.
Yeah.
Um, just to say it, we're gonna skip over the Rockies, the Padres, the Giants. They're bad. They're just
They're all
bad.
bad. Yep.
I don't see them doing anything. Arizona, they could be a, you know. Here's the thing. You look at that, Lone Wolf. The
Yeah.
Dodgers and Diamondbacks are default 1-2 in that division. Those are your
Right.
playoff teams in that division.
I think it's about as cut and dry of a division as you can make it. Arizona has a good rotation. They're really solid. The Dodgers, obviously, it depends on what poll you look at. They're one or two or one of the top
Right.
three teams in baseball. So basically, yeah, you got those two teams, and that's about it. And everybody else, honestly, no one else from that division is going to make the postseason. I'm just
No.
going to say it. I'm not even going to mince words about it. They're just not going to make the postseason. Not even an outside
Right.
looking in kind of thing.
So when we look at the National League as a whole, again, we're looking at this new playoff format. If we look at the new playoff format, Los Angeles and Arizona are in. The other three teams are out. So we still have two
Right.
wildcard spots. This is where the National League gets interesting because you
Yes.
have 6 spots for 10 teams. So almost half these teams are getting in. We
Right.
know the Marlins and the
And the
Pirates
Pirates are
have no
probably not
shot.
going to be in. Right. Yep.
So now you have 8 teams for 6 spots.
Yes.
That's going to be fun to watch.
Yes. The beauty of it right here is the competitiveness. Yeah,
And
it's going to be crazy. This is an infusion for baseball of some
Yeah,
life, I think. Yeah.
and because I can't sit here and say, oh yeah, this is who's going to make it. Unlike the American League,
Right.
this is what baseball needs.
Yes.
But
Yeah.
they need more than 1 year of it.
Right. They do. I agree. Yep.
You know, so I hope, get this to Manfred. Hey, you might want to think about making this a long term change if you want to save your sport.
Well, and you've
But
got so many different possibilities here with with how this could play out. So yeah,
right,
it's great. I can't wait to see it.
so we gave our playoff teams for the American League already because it's
Right.
pretty darn cut and dry. We have four, no, two out of the eight in the National League.
Yep.
When I'm looking at this, I really think the clear cut teams in the East, which aren't really totally clear cut, but the ones I like the most to come out of the East for locked spots are the Nationals and Braves. And in the Central, it's gonna kill me to say it, but probably St. Louis and Chicago. Um, I think Chicago had a down year last year. They had injuries and things like that. I think they're going to bounce back. Cardinals, they're just one of those steady Eddie organizations. For my wild cards, though, I think the Mets sneak in there and the Brewers. So I'm gonna put the Reds and the
Pirates
Phillies on
out
the
and the
outside
Phillies
looking
out.
in
Okay. Okay.
um, for the playoffs in the National League.
Okay. Well, good. We've got some disagreement here. That's good.
Yeah, that's what we
Okay.
want.
So I'm good with the Braves and the Nationals both making it. In fact, I really like the Braves. They were really good last year. I think they're going to be potentially really maybe even better this year. I don't know. I really like them. The Nationals, I still think they get in. They're a solid squad all the way around. And then for the Central, I disagree about the Cubs. I believe they have a new manager, and it's not the same Cubs that it used to be. I know they had a little bit of a down year. I just don't see them in the same spot where they were when they won the World Series. I think they're trending personally in the wrong direction. So I think they're on the outside along with the Pirates. I think that you're looking at the Cardinals and the Brewers being the 1-2 teams in that division, and I'd say probably Cardinals then Brewers for the 1-2. And then for your wild card, I like the Phillies more than I like the Mets, so I think the Phillies will sneak in there. And then I think that the Cubs won't even get that other wild card spot, but the Reds will
Ooh,
be the one that gets in there and gets the wild card spot, not the Cubs.
wow. Yeah, so and that's good. That's good because if we agreed all the time, this could be a very boring
It
show.
would be a boring show, exactly.
So so those are our playoff fields. What we feel is going to happen
Right.
when you're looking at the teams in the American League, and kind of processing through everything.
Yeah.
You know, I, we're not going to go through all the different possibilities with division winners and this and that.
Right. Right.
We're just gonna pick who we feel is going to make the World Series out of each league, and then who we think's going to win the World Series.
Right. I mean,
It may
if
not
you
be,
look at it, I mean, yeah, I was just going to
you
say,
know,
go ahead.
the the American League is again. I still think the American League is still cut and dry. The playoff teams are cut and dry, but the top teams in that league are cut and dry. I think the Astros are still good. I don't think they're as great when they won the World Series. I think they're still reeling from their scandal with their sign stealing. Um, I think that's going to affect them. Even though they're
Hmm.
like, oh, it's going to be the players that put it. No, that World Series victory is tainted, and that's going to eat away at that organization for a long time.
Yeah.
When I'm looking at this, obviously the trendy, we're here to pick who we think's going to win or go to the World Series.
Right.
And it's between two teams for me.
Sure.
And it really depends on how things get seeded out, I guess. I'd like to see these teams in the league championship series, but I
Yeah.
doubt it'll happen. But I'd like to see for me it's between the Yankees and the Rays. Um,
Right.
there's something about the Yankees I don't trust. I
Yeah.
just and I don't know why. I just don't trust them. It brings me back to like after they got rid of Joe Torre and they had that
Hmm.
real smugness to them, like they're just gonna show up and win. And then they stopped winning.
Yes. Right.
Um,
Exactly. Yeah.
that's the feeling I get. When Joe Torre
Hmm.
was there, they were level headed, even though they were the Yankees, and you
Right.
didn't mind that they would win. So I'm actually gonna pick the Tampa Bay Rays to represent the American League in the World Series. I'm going to go away from the popular pick of the New York Yankees, and I'm going to go with the Tampa Bay Rays.
Uh, there are times, Coach, when we don't agree, and there are times when we just absolutely agree, and I hate, I hate you. No, it's okay. It's good. That's why we've been friends for so long. No, I happen to agree with you about the Rays, and I'd say to me, it's more about the Rays than it is about the Yankees, just because I think I really like the Rays, and I like the depth that they have. And I think in this format, that's going to play out well for them. And I know what you mean about the Yankees. There's just something about them that, and now don't get me wrong. I'm not saying I hate the Yankees. A lot of people say that they hate them. I'm
Right.
sure a lot of people from Boston would say, the whole team could just go up in flames or something. But I don't feel that way about them. I just there's something about them when they get to a certain point in the postseason. I agree. They just, they're built to win, and they will, and they'll be in the postseason. Don't get us wrong, but yeah, I
Mm-hmm.
just like the Rays more. And I agree with you about the Astros. I think this could be the year where the A's maybe overtake the
Yeah.
Astros. And the Astros will still be in the mix, but I think the A's have a chance of winning the division as opposed to just coming in second. Because it is gonna leave a stain there. It's gonna be in the back of their minds, or they're gonna be asked about it, or there's gonna be something. It's still
Oh,
hanging over their heads as an
and,
organization.
and I'll tell you
Talented,
what.
yes, but
As soon as fans are allowed at the games, every away game they are getting destroyed by
oh
fans.
yeah, oh yeah,
Just destroyed.
yeah,
So not having fans is gonna be beneficial for them, but once fans get an opportunity, oh my lord, it's gonna be brutal. So,
right, right,
all right, let's move to the National League. You know, obviously whoever you talk to, they basically have washed out the entire National League and said the Dodgers are going to the World
right. They've
Series.
ordained the
They've washed
Dodgers to be the yeah,
they've ordained the Dodgers World Series champions.
right,
I
yeah,
mean
yeah,
the I'm gonna say it, the smugness of LA is coming out. And
yes,
again,
yeah,
I used to be a Dodgers fan, but
yep,
that was when Tommy Lasorda was the manager because he did the
right,
same thing that Joe Torre did for the Yankees. It was that shut your mouth, show up for work hard, and we'll win. Just that the blue collar type of atmosphere.
yep, yep,
And that's what drew people to them. Now it's not like that. It's almost like, they feel that they're owed everything. Um, and I think
yeah,
that's going to bite them in the butt. I
right,
really do. And I am going to, and I might peeve you off again because I might pick your team here. But this team finally gets back for the first time since they've had the most dominant pitching staff in the league. The Atlanta Braves go back to the World Series.
Oh man, coach. Okay. All right. Unfortunately, you took the words right out of my mouth. Dang you. Here's why though. I mean,
and no, everybody, we did not compare notes before
no,
the
we
show.
didn't talk beforehand at all. But here we are agreeing again. But here's why. So last year the Dodgers fell short. And I think you're right. There's just something about them. They made the postseason. You know, they're built kind of the same way. They're like the NL Yankees, right? You have so much money, you put all these guys together, but you need someone to be that guy, like you said, like Lasorda. Be that manager. Does a manager make a difference in baseball? You bet the manager makes a difference in baseball. And
Mm-hmm.
here's why. You make it to the postseason. You can put a bunch of talent out there, but you got to be able to get the job done. A team like the Nationals kind of, for some people, came out of nowhere. But for those who know baseball, and I don't even know it that well in comparison to some, um, and they weren't that big of a shock in comparison. I mean, to some people, but most people just put the money on the big team to win. Here's why I think the Braves. I agree with you on the Braves because that division is going to be so ultra competitive. We talked about the Phillies, the Mets, the Nationals, the Braves. You've got lots of teams in there, and you're going to be battling in that division constantly.
Mm-hmm.
And they're good teams, and 4 out of the 5 have a chance of making the playoffs. We agree that there's going to be 3 teams. We disagreed on the third team, but either way, that other team isn't going to be a slouch team every time you play them. So they're prepped for the postseason once they've battled through. And they have a really good team this year. I foresee them, I foresee them being that team that makes it through. Recapture some of that Chipper Jones magic.
Yes. All right, so we have the Braves versus the Rays, which again, a
Yes,
non-traditional World Series, I think would
most definitely.
help Major League Baseball because not everybody, like I said, people don't want to see the Red Sox, Yankees, Dodgers. They don't
Right.
like them.
Right.
Unless you're from that area, you
Right.
usually are not a fan of them.
Well, and they want intriguing storylines. I mean, Washington and Houston was a very intriguing, interesting World Series, and it held a lot of drama, and there was a lot there. It was a cool storyline, and so this would be the same thing, for people though. The Braves aren't a slouch though, like we were just talking about. They were one of those teams who had been really dominant, and so I think you would see a lot of resurgence of love for the Braves and remembering those days and those players at games
Mm-hmm.
and or at least those players, via Zoom or whatever they're acknowledging this
Right.
team and things like that. So,
All right, so we have our matchup. Looking at these two teams, I think these are two very similar teams. They
yeah,
have good pitching, they have quality batting. It's a tough decision, and you're splitting hairs. But I'm just gonna pick one that
mm-hmm.
I think that would be, who I would probably think has a little bit of an edge, not much. I'm gonna go with the Tampa Bay Rays, because I think they have a little bit more playoff postseason experience on their roster and in their club right now than the Braves do. Because they've done it a couple of years. They've been through this grind a little bit more. The Braves kind of came on last year. They've been building up, and then last year they made the breakthrough. I think the Rays have, they've been there. They were right there, and it got taken away from them. I think the Rays finally break through and are World Series champions.
Oh, yeah. And here we are again, agreeing. I can't help it. But the thing is, you're right. The Rays have been there and they've just been on the cusp and they've been eating away at it and getting close. And they do have a really good pitching staff. You look at some of the ERAs for some of their starters and for some of their backups, their closers. Everybody, it's just a really good rotation and a really good, solid team all the way across. And I agree. I think to me, this is one of those like they're building up to that, and if they win it, you could see maybe some guys leaving and things changing. But the Braves, if they lose, then you see a core that comes back, and they're going to be right there again next year or the year after.
Right.
But yeah, I think the Rays would be my pick as well to win it all over the Braves.
All right, so there you have it, everybody. We agree that the Tampa Bay Rays will be your 2020 World Series champions. We'll see in a couple months if we're right.
Or if we fall flat in the face. But
that's okay. Or if we look like complete idiots, which is fine. A note before we get to our top 5 list for the week is that and I'm going to say it, the Washington Redskins have announced their temporary name for this coming season.
Oh boy, okay.
Do you have a guess, Lone Wolf?
I didn't look. I didn't look at all. So
it is a thrilling nickname. You're gonna love it, and people are gonna flock to buy their merchandise and just be so excited about it.
I'm sensing the sarcasm here. Did they just go generic and go with Warriors?
No, they didn't even do that.
Okay.
They're gonna be called the Washington Football Team. That's their name, temporary name for this year. The Washington Football Team.
I don't even know what to say. I mean, I'm kind of like, I didn't say anything because what am I going to say to that?
I thought for sure.
What do you even say? What do you even say to that?
I thought for sure they'd pick something. Just pick something.
Yeah, like I said, even generic. Like the Warriors. Just what? We're the Warriors for now. I don't.
But I mean, it says effective immediately. Washington will call itself the Washington Football Team, pending the adoption of a new name. The NFL franchise announced Thursday. It is not the final renaming and rebranding for the team. This is the name it wants to use until the adoption of the new name at some point. So we don't even know. There's not even a timeline.
Yeah,
And their logo is the maroon with their yellow, the word Washington, and then underneath it, smaller text, football team, established 1932.
Wow.
And this, everybody, when we'll do a NFL preview, everybody, this is why the Redskins will probably be in my bottom 5. One of the reasons being the bottom 5.
Well, that and they're not
for the NFL. So. And it's bad when even Max Kellerman calls this name a ridiculous name. I'm not a big fan of Max Kellerman, but I have to agree with him on this.
Yeah.
What are you doing? Just pick a name. Yep. How hard is it?
It's not that difficult.
Pick a name.
I agree. It's horrible. Wow.
Well, here's a little NHL news real quick. Can you guess the nickname of Seattle's new NHL team?
Oh, no. The Blades.
No. I mean, I got some guesses, but it wouldn't be very appropriate, so I'm not going to say it.
Okay.
Think of Pirates.
Well, there's already a Buccaneers, so I don't know if
Under
they'd
the
make
Sea.
themselves
It's
like
gonna be
Davy
they're gonna be
Jones'
called
Locker or something. Just,
close, close.
okay.
The Seattle Kraken.
Oh, okay. All right.
Interesting. The
It's an
Seattle
interesting name. Yeah.
Kraken.
I, I
Don't know
kind
how
of
that
like
fits in.
that though.
I'd like it, but I'm confused how it fits into Seattle.
I don't know. I mean, it is a coastal town, but
It
I'm not really
is
sure how the Kraken really fits into that.
right.
I don't know, but
So there you go,
I kind
Seattle.
of like the name though.
Your new NHL team is gonna be called the Seattle Kraken. Whenever they play professional hockey again, who knows? Who knows when that's gonna happen? Um. So
Yeah,
all
soon
right.
I think, but yeah.
Yeah, we'll see. So we are moving on. It's time
Yes.
for our top 5 list for this week. This week, it's our top 5 favorite sport movie moments. So what we did is these are moments in sports movies or just sport moments in movies because
Right.
it doesn't technically need to be a sports movie. It just needs to be
True.
related
Yep.
to sports.
Yep.
Um, and again, this is our top 5 favorite. So we each have top 5. We'll rotate back and forth and give you our list.
Right.
I'm going to tell you right now, I have some that are very obvious,
Sure.
and I know I have at least one. They're gonna be like, oh yeah, that's a good one. All
Yep.
right, so we're gonna get this thing rolling right away. I'll start with my number 5.
Okay.
My number 5 moment, and I was trying to upload some audio clips because I just wanted to play them to see
Right.
if you
Right.
could guess them, but I couldn't get to work. We had our football contact days this week, and with our season got now pushed back because of everything, and it's been a mess.
Yeah.
So I couldn't figure it out and didn't have time. But my number 5 is a baseball movie.
Okay.
Okay, and I just said because I'm not a huge baseball fan, but
Right.
it's a baseball movie. It is the player's name is Billy Chapel.
Okay. All right. Yep.
Do you know the movie?
This sounds. It's not Bull Durham.
No, it's not Bull Durham. This is a very serious movie. This is a serious sports, it's a serious tone to it. So
Is this?
it's from For the Love of the Game.
Oh, okay. All right.
Kevin
Yep.
Costner plays Billy Chapel. Billy
Oh
Chapel's
yes. Yeah. Yep.
pitching in what turns out to be his final game.
Yeah.
As at Yankee Stadium, and during the whole movie, you're getting flashbacks. He's having flashbacks.
Yes, I remember this now. Yeah.
Of
Yep.
his career, and he realizes he's pitching. He doesn't realize until the 8th inning that he's pitching a perfect game, and the end of the game, he flashes to and he pitches that perfect game. That is, I think, one of a great. Everybody wants to finish their career like that,
Yeah.
and that's
Yeah.
why it's one of my favorite moments because he replays his entire career during this game.
Right.
Pitches the perfect game, and then a little sappy. He reconciles with the woman he loves and blah blah. But
Right.
so
Right.
number 5, the final
It's a good one.
out when Billy Chapel pitches a perfect game in his final start of his career.
That's a good one. I can appreciate that. Some of the moments on my list are a little bit more goofy, just
Oh,
because I think they're funny.
I have goofy
So
ones too.
sure. But I do have a couple of serious and a couple of tried and true cheesies. Um, this is my number 5 because it's to me, it's hilarious, and it comes from an iconic sports franchise. Most people would not pick this moment because they would pick something else in one of the other of the 8 movies in this series. I think there's 8, maybe 7. I don't know.
Is
But
this a Rocky one?
it is a Rocky one. This is, yes, yes.
Oh, there's
It
so
is
many.
not. There's so many, but this moment is one of my favorites because if you love Mr. T, you cannot go wrong with having in a movie and making one-liners because nobody pities the fool like Mr. T.
That's right. That's right. Nobody pities the fool.
Clubber Lang, showboating, getting in Rocky's face. So it's a little cheesy and a little corny, but I thought we needed a moment from one of the Rocky movies. And yes, there's a lot more other movies out there, other iconic moments in Rocky, obviously. But me personally, I just, if you love Mr. T, if you think, you remember the A Team, that moment in Rocky to me was just, it's hilarious. And how many people, if you quote that, they know exactly what you're talking about.
Exactly. Exactly.
So,
And I was thinking if it I do enjoy the Rocky movies.
yeah.
An honorable mention on my list was the Ivan Drago. He's not he's a machine.
Right.
Right. I mean, you gotta love that. It's like you made him bleed. Yeah. You made him bleed. He's a machine.
Right.
Exactly, you gotta love it. Yeah. But that was an honorable mention. That was not one in my top 5.
Okay. All right.
So my number 4, we're going to a college football movie.
Okay.
This team is bad, Lone Wolf. Bad.
Okay.
No, this is not the Water Boy.
No. Okay. All right. Yeah.
This is not from the Water Boy. This is predates, like this is one of the early football sports movies out there. This was you when you hear the name, you are gonna be like, oh my god, how did I think of this movie and have a scene from this movie? So this team, dominant team, winning conference national championships. They get the death penalty from the NCAA. It wipes out their football program. And they win one game all year. It's the last game of the year. They throw a 2-point conversion to beat one of the top teams in the nation and their arch rival. And that pass is made from Scott Bakula, who plays Paul Blake in the movie Unnecessary Roughness.
Wow, you did your homework, my friend. Mr. Quantum Leap over here.
Yes. Yes. How can't you like Scott Bakula? Quantum Leap.
Oh, man.
Unnecessary Roughness. And I'll even say this, and I don't mind watching his 4 seasons in Star Trek.
Wow.
On the series Enterprise.
Wow. And I thought that was one of the worst Star Trek shows that they had made. But it's gotta. I'll give him props to Scott Bakula. All right, no, that's a good moment though. That's a good one. I agree. It's hard to overcome. Even it's not always the moment of the team that's great that wins. It's that underdog story or that way to really knit it together kind of thing. So it's a good moment.
And if you see the scene in video, you see the funniness to it because I mean the Bakula is running as a defensive guy is coming at him and he like stops and stares for like 10 seconds as the guy's running towards him with the ball back. It's like, what? And then he throws it and the guy basket catches it.
Yeah.
And almost drops it. Because he's that bad.
It's that bad. Yeah, yeah,
And I don't know if you remember, I know you didn't play football in high school, but back
right.
in the 90s, we had those plastic face masks,
Oh, I remember those. Oh yeah, oh
and they
yeah.
had these in the movie.
Oh
So
boy.
it looks, they look horrible. The movie looks
Right.
horrible. Um, so I wanted to play the play call from
Oh,
Rob
okay.
Schneider. That was going to be my clip.
Nice,
The
nice.
Texas State Armadillos.
So bad.
So bad, but hilarious.
Good. That's a good one. I like it. Um, so for my number four, it's a movie that we have mentioned a couple of times. That's been on our list, and or a moment, and or an athlete, or something. Um, but this one, I think, is an iconic moment in sports. If you watch ESPN 8, The Ocho,
I might get to be
obviously
mad at.
one of our favorite
I'm just gonna
movies.
say I might get to be mad at you. Just saying.
You can. It's okay. I mean, you might throw this in there too, but when he puts on the blindfold
Yeah.
and he dodges the ball and he takes the ball in his hand, right in White Goodman's face, his smug, greasy, mustachioed face. You can't get much better than that. Of course, I'm talking about Dodgeball, a true underdog story. Vince Vaughn's character defeating Ben Stiller's character at the end in sudden death, Dodgeball.
You know what? I am mad now because you get to go right to your number three because that's my number three.
Oh man. Nice.
I will preface it though. Nobody makes me bleed my own blood.
Nobody makes me. Nobody.
So, but yeah, that's iconic. I don't care what people say. Yeah, it's
Oh yeah, yeah. So it's hilarious. I mean, you
a
can't really go
spoof of
wrong.
a sports movie. It
Yeah.
doesn't matter. It's hilarious. It's an awesome story. You can't not see the greatness in Vince Vaughn's character in that moment.
Right. Right. Yeah.
So
It's really just well, and we've talked about that movie a few times, obviously, a few hundred times, but
yes,
yeah, I mean, you really can't go wrong with that at all. So no, that's a good one, and that's your number three. So there you go. Um, my number three is a more serious moment, but it's also one of those that it's instantly recognizable. People know it, um, and that is, of course, the final scene. I mean, there's a couple scenes from this movie that you could put in there about him getting in the game, or a couple different parts where you just weren't sure what was quite going to happen. But I'll go with the final scene, the victory scene, and that is, of course, the movie Rudy,
yeah.
with Sean Astin, the little guy who could, and playing football. So I'm going to go with the victory. The iconic him on the shoulders moment. I mean, there's a lot of other ones you could go with in that movie, but to me, it's campy, but I like it, and it's Rudy. So
Yeah, it's a good movie. It's a good quote. But every time now I watch that, I just see him as a hobbit.
right. You can't
Sam,
get over it,
wise
can you,
Cam G.
Sam?
That's what I
Right.
see
Yeah.
now. Every time I
Right.
see him and see that movie, it's a hobbit, and I'm
Yep.
waiting for him to go and destroy a ring with Frodo.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
um, it's just the way it is.
No, I know.
But
I
no,
hear you, man. I hear you. I know. Yep.
it's a good movie. It's a good.
Right.
Yeah, you can't go wrong with that.
It's
So,
it like I said, it's campy. There's a lot of other sports moments out there, but I like it. So yeah.
all right. So my number two, um, it's actually a very serious moment. This individual gets hurt bad,
Okay.
but it's one of my favorites, and it's one of the funniest moments in sports movies I've ever heard. And you're probably thinking somebody got hurt, and you're laughing. I'm gonna
Right.
read the quote.
You're horrible. Yeah.
I'm gonna read the quote. Help me, Jesus. Help me, Jews God. Help me, Allah. Ah, help me, Tom
Oh
Cruise.
my
Tom Cruise, use your witchcraft to get the fire off me.
God.
How can't you
Oh man.
love the scene where Will Ferrell gets out of his race car as Ricky Bobby and is running around the racetrack screaming because he thinks he's on fire in his underwear?
Ricky Bobby.
That is one of the best scenes ever. And then he's
there he goes
fighting.
again.
He's fighting. The
you know what? Yeah, you can't go wrong. You can't go wrong with that moment. You just can't go wrong with it.
So,
no, absolutely.
That is my number 2.
Absolutely hilarious. I thought about that movie, and I was like, man, I did go with some more goofy and or cheesy kind of stuff, but yes, you really can't. I mean, it is Will Ferrell, and it is just just plain funny. My number 2, it's a little more serious. It's a movie I believe that I either had on my list or a moment or an actor or something that we talked about previously. I know it's come up. My number 2 moment is near the end of this movie, when, and mainly just because I like James Earl Jones, but the end of this movie when the field is complete and James Earl Jones plus all the other baseball players come out, and Kevin Costner's character gets to reunite with his father at the end of Field of Dreams. It's one of those that, no matter how many times you see it, it still touches you as a individual. When you see that again, no, it's not the best movie that was ever made, but I mean, this is a sports moment, and not a purely sports thing that's being done, but it's still, to me, an iconic scene from that movie.
All right. So we're down to our number 1. Who wants to give their number 1 first here, Lone Wolf? You want me to, or do you want to?
No, you go ahead. That's fine. Yep, you go right ahead.
All right. So this is not necessarily a sports movie.
Okay.
But it is a somewhat of a sports scene in a sport movie. It involves a flaming ring, a burning mascot.
Oh my God. Oh man. Now who's the one who gets to hate? Because
and a group of guys trying to save their fraternity. My number 1 sports moment, Will Ferrell trying to dive through a ring of fire in the school mascot, lights himself on fire. The number 1 by far. And now I'm going to have to go watch this movie because it is still by far I don't care, any movie. Old School is my favorite movie. I'm so upset they still haven't made a sequel of it.
Oh, I know.
Because this is a cult classic, and Will Ferrell is at his best in this movie. This is by far, I think, his best performance, and it gets so underrated. But
honestly, I love that movie too. Obviously, we've watched it I don't know how many times, but the whole group as an ensemble plays so well together. And yes, Will Ferrell is probably at his best in this movie. He's got a lot of other great movies, don't get me wrong. I'm not hating on that at all. But my favorite part and the sports moment that I will take out of this is because this was also for me my number 1. That's why I hate you right now. You're picking the same thing. Was He's in the locker room after he burns
Yes.
himself. He's in his tighty whities, and he's like, "We gotta keep our composure. Can't
Yes.
get crazy. We gotta keep our composure. Keep under control." And he's slamming the chair, and he's
Right.
slamming the lockers, and his whole body's just burned up.
And then somebody
And he,
taps him on the shoulder, and he's
exactly.
yes.
It's all right.
Now,
Yes.
a
So.
close one that I don't want to go too many scenes from this movie,
Right.
but there is another sports scene in here in that movie.
Oh yes. Yep, that's true. Yeah.
So some mud wrestling.
Right.
Blue, do you really want to do this? Ring the bell, you pansy.
That's right.
I mean, that's classic.
It's
and I know
classic.
people are going to say
can't
those
go
aren't
wrong.
sports moments. Our criteria is very loose on our list.
It's very, yes, it is.
If it's related to sports in some way, it
Yeah.
can make our list. That's
Right.
our criteria. It's our show. You want to make
Right.
your own list? Have your own show.
And you know, and that's the thing. We're going off of things that we like, and it's kind of goofy. I mean, there are so many sports moments in movies, you know, with speeches and everything.
Right.
And, you know, remember the Titans or Hoosiers or
Yeah.
Miracle. And you could say, yeah, those are good. But we're just doing it for fun, and we like these movies, and it's funny. So,
Right.
not
exactly.
all of them, but we you know, it
Yeah,
relates
not all
to
of
us
them.
in some way. Yeah.
But we mix in some seriousness, but we're trying to have some fun.
Yeah.
At the end of the show, so we both agree. And again, we did not talk before the show.
No, we did not
talk before the show. So this is staged. This is not staged. This is
absolutely
not
not staged
at all. So that was.
Yeah.
I mean, I think this is the most that we've like agreed on stuff.
You know, we didn't have
list.
that much agree. We didn't have that much concurrence before on the other categories that we had. We had a couple similar moments, but yeah, this was one of the ones where I think we agreed more. But you know, that's okay. I mean, we've got some similar tastes in movies, obviously.
That's right.
so,
all right. Anything else, Lone Wolf? I mean, it's already been an hour. It's already been an hour and a half.
Time
flew tonight.
It did. Well, you know, we really got into the whole baseball thing. We didn't even touch on the NBA or anything else much. But I think what we can do is, you know, as that starts up, now that the MLB has started, you know, the NBA is going to start. We'll get into that some more. We've got a lot of sports coming back, really highly encouraged. So I think we'll just, you know, when we go forward, we'll have a lot of good sports things to talk about.
Yeah, you know, unfortunately, it's opening night for MLB.
Right.
The Yankees says final in 6. I don't know what happened there.
I think there was a rain delay.
Okay, and I think what they're doing is if it's past like halfway point, they're just calling it a win for the other team. Right this year, just because of time constraints. And then you got the other game tonight, just for people that are listening. And I know if you listen to it recorded, sorry. But the Giants and Dodgers are tied at 1 in the bottom of the 5th. So that's kind of surprising there.
Yep.
So, you know, again, we talked about, you know, our feelings on the Dodgers.
Right.
But the Giants aren't very good, so that's kind of surprising. But
we'll see what happens there. Yep. It's one game. It's one game.
So again, I want to thank everybody for tuning in tonight and who listens to the show later. Again, things slowly are really opening back up. We have Major League Baseball officially back. We have NBA will be back here in a few days. NFL training camps are going to be opening up. And, of course, we have our top 5 lists. If anything, join us for the last part of the show. Listen to our top 5. Criticize us. Agree with us. Whatever you want to do.
It doesn't matter. Either way. Yep.
But we will have a new top 5 next week. What it'll be, we don't even know yet. So
That's right.
thank you everybody for tuning in. Have a great week. We'll talk to you next time.
Yeah, have a good night.